Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, there's no way around it. Mike Budenholzer told us Jusuf Nurkic is having trouble fitting in. Is it an emergency? What can be done to fix it? And where does it go from here? Coming up.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, the staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Wednesday, a winning Wednesday. When they play Monday and they don't play again until Thursday, we get 3 winning days. Don't forget Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, guys. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Times. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Joining me, as always, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 910 from the wonderful West Valley. How are we feeling on this Wednesday, Ben Garcia?
I know you'll address it. I'm feeling great because we beat the Lakers, and I know you'll address it. But we did an episode last night. It was so good. It was so good, and it was so fun. And then video didn't work out, technical difficulties. So, how about them Suns? How about them? We're not going to recite everything, but that was a fun win last night. That was so fun. So
3-1 anyway.
Authentic, but frustrating.
The win counts even if our episode died. The Suns got revenge on the Lakers. They beat LA. It was a fun night at Footprint Center. Shout out to our audio listeners. And just a reminder for everybody, if you don't already, sometimes video just dies, like I said, but audio survives, and that's what happened. So it wasn't the most amazing audio quality, but you did get an episode on that game if you are on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. Otherwise, the rest will be lost to history. But we're going to hit the biggest topic coming off of that game by far right now for you, which was Jusuf Nurkic, benched from the second quarter on by head coach Mike Budenholzer. 2 fouls, 3 turnovers, 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 1 from the free throw line, Ben, in those 15 minutes. About as ugly as it could possibly look. And Mason Plumlee, small ball, take the Suns home. That comes off of a Clippers game where he struggled with foul trouble, Lakers game where he was up and down, and obviously a Mavs game where he had some dominant moments. What are you worried about within this Nurkic thing? What is actually your biggest concern here when it comes to this guy, considering the Suns are still winning games?
I think it's really easy to say, oh, he's not finishing around the rim, or oh, he's, doing something offensively. I just don't care that much about the scoring aspect of Jusuf Nurkic. Does he drive me a little insane? Sure. But he's not at all he's not a scoring machine. What's the biggest concern right now is the thing that I defended Jusuf Nurkic on. It's where I planted my flag. It's the turnovers. He's been sloppy, like really sloppy, where he's just having trouble fitting into this offense where one of my biggest things about Jusuf Nurkic that I loved is that he was a playmaker. He was a passer. He got other guys involved, and there's no way around it. For the Suns fans, that have kind of heckled at me a little bit about my Jusuf Nurkic standing. I'm like I've said to you last night, I'm not loyal to a take. I'm loyal to the truth. Jusuf Nurkic was awful. Like, he was literally, it's not just me, to Bud, unplayable. The turnovers, I can't have that. I got to have a guy that can take care of the ball. And I didn't expect Mason Plumlee to be that guy. And I thought Plumlee could potentially be the Eubanks of this year. So far, man, it's Nurkic. Those turnovers are just so brutal. It feels like everyone hurts more than anyone else's. Like, guys are getting out in transition. It's just, the sloppiness has just been bad. What about you?
If you look at the first few minutes of this Lakers game, like, we're going to remember it as Anthony Davis 8 for 12 minutes to kick off the game. The Lakers go up 18 in 6 minutes, and it's like, get Jusuf Nurkic off of the court. But he actually had 2 plays early that were better than you're going to remember. He actually did stop Anthony Davis at the basket, and then he had a finish over Hachimura. I believe it was an and one, and then he missed the free throw.
Yeah, he missed it.
And you're like, okay, this is fine. This is what Nurk is kind of out here to do. The problem is what came next, where he very much could not stop AD after that, especially when he had to kind of move his feet and it wasn't just stationary, post-ups that he's trying to contain. And he tries to post up Hachimura the next time down, shoulders him, bombs a layup, and it's right back to square one where we're all just like scratching our heads about everything. So the thing that I think is happening with Nurkic is that he has less of a margin for error, and he has to make the most of his opportunities. And I think the Mavs game is actually a perfect example, Ben, of what it has to look like. Because Mike Budenholzer wants to play random. He wants different guys initiating offense. He wants different guys scoring. He wants balance and ball movement. Frank Vogel and Kevin Young said, put the ball in Nurk's hands almost at the start of every possession. He's our point guard. Let's maximize him. That's not the case anymore. The Mavs game, Nurk takes advantage, hands it to these smaller players, including Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, who are centers, not to mention the smaller guys that Jason Kidd tried to throw at him. He scores 12 straight points to close out the second quarter, and he makes his impact felt. Right? Jusuf Nurkic right now is a role player. Last year, he was a featured part of the team. Role players have to do what they do well to earn minutes, stay on the court, make an impact. So we shouldn't be thinking of Nurk as 35 minutes, anchor of the team, every night dominant guy they have to count on. And in some ways, that's a good thing, right? They put Mason Plumlee out there, they still win. That might not have been true last year when you're talking about a Eubanks or something else. But when he is on the court, when he has advantages, when Mike Budenholzer is relying on him, he can't make mistakes. He basically has to play mistake-free basketball and take it to the team in the ways that he's able to. Otherwise, if he can't do that, the floor falls out and he's going to be right back to the bench.
It's a really good analytical way of looking at it. Jusuf Nurkic last year was a bigger role. What was he, the fourth? Grayson Allen. What was he, the fifth best player on the Suns last year? Where is he this year? I mean, Bradley Beal, Tyus Jones, was he seventh? Like Ryan Dunn has surpassed him. Mason Plumlee potentially at this point has surpassed him.
I mean, in terms of touches, he was probably fourth. He was ahead of Grayson and everything in terms of just having the ball.
If you want to go into touches, then yeah. I mean, even at times, man, if you want to factor in all the time that Bradley Beal missed, he's the third most guy who's touching the basketball. This is where Suns fans do need to cut Jusuf Nurkic a little slack, and we'll get to it, the most of that part later on. But Nurkic does have the biggest adjustment, and you kind of alluded to that. But what you said that I thought was really, really interesting is he's now a role player, and he has to do what he does very well, or he's not playable. Where last year he had to be played. This year the Suns have options. He's got to be able to pass the ball more effectively, and he has nearly doubled his turnover statistics from last year to this year. You can't have that. You cannot have a clumsy big man. And not only that, a clumsy big man who's not exactly the fastest guy on the court, so that when there's a turnover, he has a hard time getting back on transition defense. He's got a lot of things to clean up. And he's got time to do it. But if he can't hone in on what he does well, man, what I saw from Bud last night was a guy that's no nonsense, and he's going to give him some time to figure it out. But there will be a time where he does pull the cord if he can't figure it out, or whatever, things down the line that we're not going to really discuss. But Nurkic, man, just carelessness with the basketball. I don't know what it is. He didn't get old overnight. He's not an old player. These aren't things that are athleticism.
Well, I think what you said is
thinking
right.
Too much.
Last year, he could play through these mistakes. I think he's had a bad start. There's no way around that. This is worse than his usual. It's not like this is just what Jusuf Nurkic is. I think it'll improve, but they just have better options now when it's not working. Whereas last year, maybe there'd be a game where he starts the game 1 of 6, but he kind of plays himself back around, or he turns it over a few times, but he makes up for it with 5 big assists in the second half or something. Now it's just magnified because, again, they don't have to go through him, and he just needs to figure it out. Right now, I would say the only good thing he's doing is screening and rebounding. But, I mean, even then, he had 4 in 15 minutes. It's not exactly like a killer. So screening is not going to get you minutes.
Also, to be fair, he's like the biggest guy on the Suns. He should be grabbing rebounds. That's not something you get credit for. That's something you have to do. Where if he's not doing that, that's a major indictment on him. That he's not even grabbing boards.
Never been an awesome offensive rebounder. He's a good enough offensive rebounder, but really it's defensive rebounds, and you kind of get into the Steven Adams, Russell Westbrook dynamic of like, well, somebody's got to grab them. You know, it's
exactly.
You know, the ball bounces off the rim, somebody's going to get it. That's not always going to be a big plus in your column. Okay, how can this get better? How long can the Suns afford to wait for it to get better before they make a change? Coming next. First, today's show is brought to you by the Game Time app, the best place to buy any ticket. Game Time also has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'll give you a personal story. I was keeping tabs every day by day as I was getting ready to go visit my buddy in New York City. We wanted to go to Sunday Night Football and watch the Giants get devastated by the Cincinnati Bengals. That's exactly what happened, but I wanted to pay not a lot of money because I don't want to watch the Giants do that and then feel like I just wasted arm and a leg. So what I did is I kept opening Game Time. They kept showing me their Game Time picks right up top. I knew that's the best value. Let me keep an eye. It went down a little bit. I pulled the trigger, and I couldn't have been happier. You get seat views, all-in pricing, and more straight from the app, plus those Game Time picks to show you up top the best value for that event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA when you do to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. I want to let's go into the mind of Jusuf Nurkic, okay? He took this on the chin. We didn't see Twitter replies like he sometimes gets into. We didn't see sulking. We heard him basically own up to this and kind of pledge to Dwayne Rankin, to the fans, that this is just going to be a momentary setback.
We know you obviously want to be out on the floor, and it was a struggle tonight. How are you just dealing with it right now?
Get a win, man. That's all it takes.
Okay.
You're going to take some time to adjust to the, system, minutes, rotation. So I ain't no trouble in paradise.
Okay.
We're here for the bigger goal, man. So I understand it's big a little bit, but nothing to worry about, man. I'm a team first, and we want to win, and that's all we care about.
Okay, so shout out to Dwayne Rankin again on that. No trouble in paradise, doing whatever it takes. What do you think of how Nurk responded to Game 4 benching?
This is what I love about Jusuf Nurkic. This is where I'll rave about the guy. You know how many times when DeAndre Ayton, I almost said the stupid thing that DeAndre Ayton always says, because I saw Suns fans putting on social, it's not even close now. DeAndre Ayton is much better than Jusuf Nurkic. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we all knew that. Step out, touch grass. You're not putting a hot take out there. And so this Nurkic thing where it's such the opposite of DeAndre Ayton, which is what this team needed. This guy is mature. This guy's an adult, and he owned it. And not only that, he didn't just say, well, I want to be out there with my guys. He goes, whatever it takes to win. Like, that's a great answer from a guy that, whether you like it or not, Suns fans is one of the leaders of this team. This guy is back to these guys. And when Beal was struggling last year, and when Kevin Durant wasn't getting his shots, and when there was issues with Frank Vogel, he was always the constant voice of triumph in the locker room and leadership in the locker room. That is exactly what I want to hear. Not DeAndre Ayton. Ayton, do you feel like you deserve that contract? And he has to tell you that he's dominating. Like, that was so immature, and I love it from Nurk, man. It's what makes me want to continue to give this guy more chances, because he has backed the team, and we'll hear from Booker later. And the team hasn't lost him either. So I don't know what your reaction was to that, but that's what it was for me.
I think Jusuf Nurkic is the best teammate on the Suns. And look, I think the guy just kind of knows what it is. He got traded already. They got swept. He probably had the biggest slip from his regular season to his postseason performance of anybody on this roster against Minnesota. He was absolutely terrible against the Timberwolves. There's no way around that. And so how can you have a problem? This isn't your team. You're not owed anything. It's a new coach. There was change because of your own failures and because of the team's failures. I know that might just sound easier said than done, but like, this is what he should be saying. I give him credit for owning it, but if he had been defensive, I mean, at least you want to compare him to DeAndre Ayton. I know you don't, but people do. DeAndre Ayton had, I'm a number one pick. I'm a max contract player. We made it to the finals. I didn't think it was justified, but I can at least see where the ego comes from. Jusuf Nurkic, his whole career is about kind of overachieving and proving it and everything else. So if he has a slip up, I would have been shocked if he got defensive and defiant about it, and he would have broken the trust that I think he's earned, again, as the best teammate on the Suns. But let's hear from Devin Booker about exactly what we're agreeing on, Ben, which is that Nurk has earned the trust of his teammates by being a good teammate, and Book will let you know.
I mean, what is this, year 10 for Nurk also? You know, he understands, what it is, and, you never want the weight when you play bad, and, he's a competitor, so he's going to come in, he's going to play better, and we're going to rally behind him, we're going to do whatever we need to do, and, we know what he's capable of. We've seen it last game, so, we're with him.
I mean, I just think it makes such a huge difference that this isn't being treated as a catastrophe, right? Like, it helps to win, but to hear that, it's like, that's what has to happen for it to not be a big deal. Bud owned it, Nurk owned it, Book owns it, and now it's almost a non-story.
Well, because the team understands who has the biggest adjustment on this team. You're asking Jusuf Nurkic from last year to go from third in touches we talked about to, fifth on his own court. Like, there are some things that Nurkic does that drives me crazy. But he's bought into the game plan. He changed his body type. Like, he didn't have to do that. He could have said, screw you, Budenholzer. This is how I've always played. And we're not discounting that Jusuf Nurkic has been awful largely to start the season. Listen to my words. He's been largely awful. But he has enough stock in these players who have not lost the faith in Jusuf Nurkic. Kevin Durant only talks good about this guy, and Booker does as well. And not only that, it's not just off the court. On the court, the first person to back up these guys is Jusuf Nurkic. Like, these guys are kind of skinny jeans, and he's the bouncer at the nightclub. That's what Nurkic's role is. It's more than just being a little frustrating at times. He's a leader on the court. He's earned the right to be able to fast track his way and deviate from what was last year to this year. And he has earned more than 4 games to get better into his role. And it's not just him who has earned this, or it's not just him who says this. It's Booker. It's Durant. Like, when we get to January, when we get to whatever, later in the season, and he's still awful, sure. This is a guy who's, again, the biggest adjustment, had no preseason as well. And now we're asking him to come in and be a top, 15 center in the league? Like, give the guy time. That's where I'm at on it.
Okay, so let's get to how long they can afford to wait before they kind of make changes. Before that, I just want to say one thing that gives me pause that can maybe guide us into that portion of the conversation is that you mentioned him having an adjustment. I think it's between him and Beal, who's having to adjust the most this season. Totally fair to pick Nurk. A lot of the things that Bud wants him to do are not going well right now. Shooting threes, he's 0 for. I don't know what the fur is. He's not made one.
He has one. He does have one.
Oh, he made one. Okay.
Against the Clippers. He's got one.
Oh, he made one early in the He made one
Him and
early
Zach
in the
Edey,
season
if you
that I
were keeping
forgot
track
about.
of that. They've each got one.
He is not the kind of roll threat, lob threat that he's being deployed as. He's not really able to make a huge impact as that guy in the dunker spot that I kind of mentioned when we talked about Book on Monday's episode. And so this whole offseason we spent going, can Bud do to Nurk what he did with Al Horford, Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, Paul Millsap? So far, no. So far, the answer has been no. And it does worry me because it was already going to be a little bit of a square peg, round hole fit to ask Nurkic to develop those skills. It was already a long shot. So to start off poorly, you got to be at least a little worried. But let's answer, how long can the Suns wait here before they have to make a change in Nurkic's role? Before they start thinking bigger than that? All right, we're back. I did a little dramatic pause there. Ben, to me, one of the things that the Suns have always said to return to this point since they got Nurkic is that the type of dude that he is, they really valued it. And when I look at Jusuf Nurkic, who in that last segment we played the clip from Booker, he said, what? It's year 10 for Nurk. Just like I think they were in the same draft class, so that's what he was alluding to.
Yeah.
Jusuf Nurkic is 30 years old. He has 2 years, well, a year plus the next one left on his contract. He's paid until he's 32. The reality of a center in the NBA is that after that, you're kind of hunting for minimum contracts or thereabouts. He's already had a whole career of success. He's made the playoffs multiple times, got to play with Damian Lillard, went to a conference finals, overcame injuries, got multiple big paydays. I think you're dealing with a humble guy, and it's easier said than done for me, but I think Mike Budenholzer can approach this situation the same way he did on Monday night against the Lakers, because I think he can say, Nurk's not going to be sensitive and sulk and destroy the locker room if we treat him as a role player and we treat him as a matchup-based guy. So I think you're going to see more of that, and it wouldn't shock me if maybe sometime relatively soon he maybe isn't the every night starter on this team.
You know, we were talking the other day about like kind of the issues so far for the Suns season, and Booker was a slight issue, and you and I were like, he's going to bounce back, and he bounced back, and now we're like, yeah, it's no longer an issue anymore. If this is the Suns' biggest issue right now, their fifth best player on the team isn't playing exactly like they should, they're in a really good spot. And if you have a guy that's struggling on your team and he has a good attitude about it and he understands and he really just wants to win, it's a great place to be, man. If he's just going to match up, drive him every which way, and not to mention, like, let me just ask you this question. Is it possible that we're overreacting and this is just Anthony Davis is just really, really good at basketball? Like, do we really think when they play the Nuggets, I'm sorry, not the Nuggets, the Hornets,
well,
and they're rolling, well, exactly, but they're rolling out Nick Richards with the Hornets. You really think that he's going to struggle this mightily? Like, do you really think that? Or is it just there's a possibility of, guess what? You know who's really good? Anthony Davis.
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes, that it's not going to be this ugly. It's not going to. And I think, too, like, when you talk about the benching specifically, that is definitely related to we got to win this game, right? Like, Bud wasn't benching Nurkic to create a narrative and make us all talk about it on the podcast today and like pronounce him to the NBA as he is on the trade block and we hate him now. It's like, we got to win. We're down 18. We got to win the game. So I think we should just treat it as exactly that for now. What's funny about you talking about matchups and like what a different game could look like, you know who they play on Saturday?
I don't know.
They play Portland and DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, Suns fans, you better hope Jusuf Nurkic plays bad. Because if he outplays DeAndre Ayton, I will be insufferable on social media. the entire time. I totally forgot they are hosting DeAndre Ayton once again. I cannot wait to hear when reporters ask him, Rankin and Gerald Bourguet and company, maybe even you, maybe I can toss you a couple of dollars and you could do this on my behalf. Hey, Ayton, anything to say about your early season struggles? Just so I can hear him say one more time, no, I'm dominating. I'm a max player in this league. And just all the nonsense that Nurkic doesn't bring. So I totally forgot that they've got Ayton at home. Maybe I'll make it to that game. Sorry, I got a little off track.
Perfect example of what we're talking about here, right? Like, he's better than Nick Richards, but he is in that mold of a Nick Richards type of guy where I don't worry about Ayton in that type of, or about Nurkic in that type of game against a guy like Ayton.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, okay? So I think Plumlee did 20% better against AD than Nurkic. Not huge. They played small quite a bit. AD also, as we talked about in the episode that half of our audience heard yesterday, it looked hobbled. He had multiple falls. There was a clip going around, I don't know if you saw online, Ben, of JJ Redick asking AD in the hallway, "Are you good?" And AD looked like he said no. People are building that into something. I don't know. You never know with Anthony Davis, but
you really don't know.
It got better, right? So, like, okay, mission accomplished. You live to see another day. Like I said, I mean, am I off base to think, like, in a month, if we checked in, Plumlee could have started a game?
No, I don't think it's off base at all. At some point, I think it also depends how the season's going. Like, if the Suns are playing this well and they're 15-7, no, I don't think there's going to be a change. I think they're going to roll out what they have. But if it's something that, like, the Suns are kind of spiraling a little bit or there's issues, yeah, that's going to be if your question is, if there's the first big change of the season, that will be it. Yes, that's the first one on deck.
That's fair. What do you think is more, if I'm Mike Budenholzer trying to not embarrass Nurk, what's the easier sell from, like, an optic standpoint between you're still starting, but sometimes you only play 15 minutes, or you're going to come off the bench for a couple of weeks and we're going to see how Plumlee looks, but you'll still play 15 minutes?
They're going to say this because they want to protect Nurk and they don't want this guy to get dragged through the mud. They're going to say, yeah, we had a meeting and Nurk actually brought this up to us. Like, it'll probably be their idea and it'll be like, Nurk brought it up to us and we think he's just a selfish basketball player. And he said, you know what? Match me up based on who's up that night. I'm willing to go to the bench for a little bit. And he's still going to get his $20 million a year, but they'll do everything they can to prop the guy up. This is not Ayton. This is not someone else. So that's how I think it'll go down. 1,000%.
I think that makes perfect sense. And I think it fits with the vibes we've been talking about. Here's the problem. If Jusuf Nurkic is not an every night trustworthy playoff level center, Mason Plumlee's not. Oso Ighodaro is already losing minutes, right? I mean, Oso, a 40th overall pick, like, he's a 40th overall pick for a reason. The Suns do have a problem here on their hands. Unless they can cobble together some kind of small ball unit that actually works at a high level night to night, I'm dubious. That asks a lot of Kevin Durant. Or something shocking happens. I mean, I don't even know what that would be. Like, this isn't going away. This concern, whether he's on the bench or Plumlee starting or who and this and that, like, the roster's the roster. The center spot is an issue.
I don't think necessarily, I've thought about this ever since last night. I don't think necessarily Nurkic is going to hinder them from winning a championship. I think that they can get past AD and Jokic with Nurkic as their center. Like, if there is no viable option out there right now, there's not. Like, and I'm not even going to discuss trades because Suns fans, if you're doing so, you're just messing with your own brain. It's not happening right now. They're 4 games into the season. Don't expect that until much closer to the trade deadline when things are issues. But let's fast forward. Who is the guy? This is, again, what I'm asking Suns fans. And please tell me who it is. Who is the guy that you can get that is comparable or better than Jusuf Nurkic for this team, that is not going to cost you the 2031 pick, that makes less money than Jusuf Nurkic. Like, that's what you have to do. There's not a guy out there for that. There's not. There's no guy that has separated himself in the season that makes less than Nurkic that would value that pick. And once again, Walker Kessler ain't that guy. He's not.
Yeah. It's going to be a high wire act to do it in season, which is why I came out early last offseason and said, if a deal materializes where you can get rid of Nurkic or Allen, frankly, I didn't even care which, although Allen wasn't tradable after he got the extension and everything else, but where you can do exactly what you're talking about, basically get a cheaper center, hopefully, and then another wing, something like that, you do it. There weren't a lot of those even in the summer, which is why it didn't happen. I mean, I pointed to Charlotte a lot, which you already said their center's name, Nick Richards and Grant Williams. If you could do,
Nick Richards stinks. Gosh, he stinks, but whatever.
I don't think either one of us are watching the Hornets closely, but if you have big Nick Richards takes, then you can fire him off here. I just think he's exactly the type of center we're talking about, where he might not be more valuable than Jusuf Nurkic, but he's paid closer to that value.
Yeah.
So you can have him be a role player and not be so, sweating it so much. But
is it worth it to you sorry, I was going to just say, is it worth it to you to give this up? And I'll be quick, give up Nurkic and something. You're not just giving up Nurkic, you're giving up something else to go get Nick Richards, who is so comparable to Jusuf Nurkic. Nothing is going to make a difference.
Well, what I'm saying is that it would have to be in order to, like you're saying with the value, because the Suns only have a couple seconds and this ultra valuable 2031 pick. They're like in no man's land from a trade standpoint because they have something really valuable and something not valuable. They don't have an in-between asset to give up unless you start talking about Oso potentially. We're not going to get too far down the rabbit hole. So it's almost like you need to get more back than just Nick Richards if you're going to give up that 2031 pick. Obviously, he's not worth that. So then that's why I'm saying I always looked at it as kind of a combo. Can you get two players back who fill a couple different needs? But again, to return to where I started with this point, that was hard in the summer. Good luck doing it in February when everybody's trying to win games and develop their talent and play basketball every night. That's even harder to finagle. So that's why it is a little bit of seems like a kind of impossible thing to imagine. Once we hear names and possibilities and trade season gets closer, I guess we'll have a better idea.
Amen, brother. I have just amen. That is exactly how I would have put it. Again, I feel like, Nurkic has been awful, but it's been 4 games. Let's let it marinate a little bit. And the sky is not falling. They are 3-1, and they should be 4-0. Suns are in a really good place if this is their main issue. I'm so stoked. It's been so fun.
Clippers and Zubats again on Thursday. See how Nurk does. See how the team can respond. Playing another opponent on a quick turn. And then dominating. Returns to the Valley. Keep it right here.
Dominating. Here he
comes. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. Become an everydayer. Join the thousands of other Suns fans who already get to call themselves that, including Hector. One more shout out since YouTube didn't get to see or hear that. Suns Vision dude who reached out yesterday. We'll be back with you one more time before Suns Clippers tomorrow, and then we'll have a recap episode for you of that game on Halloween to close out the week. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll talk to you soon.